Hello students. So in today's class we are going to discuss about the different types of functions available in Python. So already we have discussed regarding the int and input functions. So in depth we are going to discuss about that now. So input and output function. So input function, most probably we will make use of this function to get input from the user or to directly give some values with the help of the keyboard. We make use of this input function in Python. So input function, if you consider, when you make use of this, normally the values which you give, whether it is an alphabet or number or it is a special character, everything will be converted into a string, or it accepts all the inputs which has been given by the user as a string initially. And after accepting as a string, it will while returning the value also, the same string type value only will be returned, because we are not going to use any conversions. In case if you have entered any numerical value and if you wanted to convert that into the specific data type, you have to make use of the respective data types along with the input function, like int, float, and character data type or string data type if you wish to use. So we have to make use of the relevant data type along with the input function to convert it. But if you're not going to use any data types for conversion process, whatever has been accepted as a string, the same will be returned in the output as a string type. So when you look at the syntax for input function, variable equal to input of prompt. So this is the actual syntax. So variable, it is user defined. We can give any variables, and input parenthesis. So within this parenthesis we have given prompt. So this prompt is optional. We can give or we don't have to give. And this prompt usually consists of the string actually. So it will display a message for the user. It will prompt the user to type some values. So for that reason we will display a string over here. And once the value has been entered, or once it will be converted into the string type because of the input function, and in turn that will be assigned to the variable which has been created. Got it? So let us see an example based on this. Now fname is a variable, and for this fname we are going to create an input function. Within that input function we have given a prompt called enter your first name within quotes. So whatever you display within quotes will be considered as a string. So here they have asked the user to enter the first name, and they have given the value as Arnab. So this Arnab will be converted into string, and it will be assigned to the variable fname. Similarly, for age variable, here the same format they have followed, input of enter your age. So age we usually give in the number form, right? So when you give the number, what will happen? Even that will also be considered as the string. But in case when you're trying to find out the addition of two numbers or subtraction of two numbers, you come across the numbers, right? So when you enter the numbers, when the numbers are being accepted as string, that will not be used for calculation purposes. So in that case, we have to make use of the data types called int or float, or the respective data types, whichever you wish to work on it. So let us see how that works actually. Okay, so to change the values that we have given as a string type to the respective data type, we have to make use of the int function. For example, the int function, what it will do, it will convert the accepted string to an integer. In case if the value which we are going to give is a non-numeric one, an error message will be generated. Here they have asked you to enter the age. So instead of giving 19, if you are going to provide some non-numeric value like 19 in words, if you have provided, this will display an error message because we have given the integer data type here. If you provide the word 19 over here, what will happen? The word 19 is also a string, and for input function it will convert into a string, and that string, if you convert into integer, it will provide an error because integer will work only for the numericals and only for the whole numbers. It will not work for the string data type. Got it? So that's why it will generate an error message. And now we have used the integer data type here. Once the conversion occurs, that will be assigned to the age variable. And now to determine the data type, we are using the type function. So to find out the value 19 belongs to what data type, a type function can be used along with a variable. So when you use this syntax, when you use according to the syntax, it will display as class int as the result. So which means this 19 belongs to the integer data type. And now we have discussed about int and input function. And after giving all the values, we have to display the output, right? So to display the output, we make use of a function called a print function. So if you look at the print function, usually we use the print function to display the output on the standard output device, that is the screen, which is your monitor. And the function print, if you see, it will evaluate the expression before it displays on the screen. In case in the print function, if you have provided any numbers without any quotes, like a print of 5 plus 7, if I'm going to provide, that will be evaluated and displayed. But if I'm going to provide those numbers or any characters or alphabets within the quotes, what will happen? That will be displayed as such, because whatever you display within quotes or enclose within quotes, that will be considered as a string. And look at the syntax for print function. This is how the syntax of print function will take place in all your programs. So print of value. Now look at this example. So num1 and num2 are the variables, and for these two variables they have created int of input of enter the first number. They are prompting the user to enter the value by using the input function, and for conversion process they have used this int data type. Yes. So this enter the first number will be displayed as such, and once you enter the number 5, that will be converted into string and in turn will be converted into integer data type. Yes, and then it will be assigned to the variable num1. The same process takes place for num2 variable, and here result is another variable. For this variable, we are doing a process. We are giving an expression as num1 plus num2. So the values will be assigned and processed here, and then it will be assigned to the result variable. So that result variable you're calling here in the print function. Hence, the value will be displayed here as sum is 12. So this is how your program works. So these two things are considered as the input. This is the process and this is the output. Okay. So now let us discuss about user-defined function. So user-defined means whatever things that is being defined by the user or created by the user are called user-defined. For example, variables you can consider. So variables, if you see, everything is user-defined. So variables are completely given by the user. So it's up to the user's wish. He can give a single character, or he can give a sentence, or he can give a word. So it is up to the user. And now when it comes to functions, even the functions can also be created or defined by the user. So that's why we call it as a user defined function. Usually function, if you see, we will call it as the building blocks of a program, because without a function we can a program will not be fulfilled. A program cannot be complete at all. So a function plays a major role in programming actually. So these functions, I have told you that these are the building blocks of a program, and each and every building block, each and every blocks of a function, if you see, which is already exist within the program, that you will make use of it, because all the functions are predefined within your program, like your int function or input function, then print function. These things we have discussed so far. So if you consider these things, these are already predefined and you are just using that to perform a specific task. That's why we and it makes your work much easier. So your programming task has become much easier. You're doing it much you can do it much faster with more efficiency. Yes, so that is the reason why we make use of functions which are already defined in your program. And if you consider how to define and call a function in Python, a user defined function, so it is usually created or it is defined by using the def statement. So def represents, def represents defined. So we make use of this def statement followed by the function name and parenthesis along with the parameters. So usually within the parenthesis we may give parameters or we may not give parameters. So it's up to us. So usually inside the parenthesis we will define the variables, or if you want to call any values in between the program, we can define all those things within the parenthesis. So let us see how to define a function based on the syntax. Okay, so this is how the function syntax will be. So definition statement, which represents that the function has been created, followed by the function name, so which is much similar to the variable name. So this is given by the user. So any name we can give here. So that name we will be calling out throughout your program anywhere in between to access the values. And within the parenthesis, comma separated list of parameters. So if you wish to give any variables, you can separate. If you wish to give more number of variables, you can separate that using comma and you can provide it. So this is the first statement of the function definition. This represents that the function has been defined, and followed by a colon has been given here. So this colon represents that we have defined a function, and whatever statement that follows this colon will be indented. Indented in the sense the indentation will be provided by default 4 spaces. It will begin with 4 spaces. So the functions or the code that follows this colon will always be indented. That it will be automatically indented with 4 spaces. So why this indentation has been provided in Python means it will help you to identify that the statements belong to this particular function. So this particular block alone, the statements belong to it. So the statement immediately following the indentation, after that, in case if the statement is going to follow from the very first line, this means that the statement does not belong to the function. So for that purpose we make use of the indentation. So when you look at the program, you will understand even more clearly. So here you can give a print statement. This docstring represents the print statements. You can give any print statement, or you can give any process related statements like calculations. So anything which we wish to do, we can do it over here. Okay, so a function which you define here, so once we define the function, we can reuse it at multiple places as many times as needed by just calling the function name itself. So that is called as calling that function. And many predefined functions we have already discussed, like a print function, input function, and then int function. All these are built-in functions. So let us see how this function works actually. But before that, each and every program that you save, each and every file which you save inside the Python root folder, you will call it as a module. So the Python file which you create using the script mode, you will call it as a module. Got it? And these functions, it can be easily used in a Python program just by importing the module using the import command. So import is also a keyword which we will use to import the modules, and the modules which is nothing but the Python file. So in case if you come across the built-in functions, if you wish to make use of the built-in functions to make your programming much faster and efficient, you have to be familiar with 3 things. One is the function name, and then arguments, and then the return value. So function name, the name of the function which we are going to define, and then arguments, as usual, the parameters. So inside the parenthesis you can give arguments or you don't have to give arguments, so it's completely up to us. And then return value. So a function may return value or it may not return value after the process. So it completely depends on the argument which you are passing on to the function. So let us see an example based on this. See here, they are going to define a simple function which is not going to return any value. So let us see how this works. If you look at this definition, function 1 parenthesis colon. So definition is the statement which defines that the function has been defined, and then function 1, it is the name of the function, so which is user defined, and then inside the parenthesis I have not provided any parameters, which means I have not provided any variables. So followed the code which is followed by this colon will be indented with 4 spaces. If you see here, 1, 2, 3, and the space will also be counted as the 4th space, and then in the 5th line only it will start to print. It will start to execute the statements. So it will be automatically indented with 4 spaces. So print of I'm learning functions in Python within quotes they have given. So what will happen here? You have defined the function here. Now to access the value which is under this function, what I have to do is I will call this function name, which is called as function call. I have told you, you can access the functions anywhere between the program just by using the function name. So this function 1 is the function name. So see here in the next line, function 1 parenthesis. So I'm calling the function. So if I call this function using the function name, whatever I have within this function definition, everything will be accessed and displayed. So this is the output. So this is how a function call will work. So this is called as calling the function. Yes, now they have worked in interactive mode in this. So in interactive mode, they are directly calling the function using the function using the function name. Now let us see how we work in the script mode. So in script mode, they are trying to print a right angle triangle. See, in the script mode, they have given all the statements. Definition, triangle is the function name followed by parenthesis and colon. Yes, and then print function. So inside the print, they are trying to print in a triangular form. They are trying to print this triangle using the asterisk, right angle triangle. So all these are strings, so we can give as per our wish. And after providing this, you have to save the script mode, and after saving this function name, I'm going to call in the shell environment. So when I type this here, triangle parenthesis, which means I'm invoking the function. This is not called as function call. So in the interpreter, in the interactive mode, I'm directly calling the function soon after the program, so you'll call it as function call. But here in the script mode, I have saved everything, and here I'm invoking the function. So I'll tell you what is the difference between an invoking and calling the function. So when you type this triangle parenthesis, what will happen? This right angle triangle, which we have given in the print statement, gets printed. So let us see what is the difference between invoking and calling a function. So when you call a function, you're directly asking the program to run. You're directly asking the function or telling the function to run. But invoking a function, this one we have done with the interactive mode. But when you invoke a function, what is happening? You are giving permission to run something. Yes. And here, if you're invoking the function, you're calling it directly by using the function name. So that is the difference between calling a function and invoking a function. So let us see one more example here. See, to write a Python function to compute area of the rectangle. So to compute area of a rectangle, what they are doing, definition statement followed by area rectangle. This is the function name. And then within the parentheses, they have given the variables, or you can even call it as parameters, length and breadth, followed by that colon. So whatever code that follows the colon will be indented with 4 spaces. So area is the variable again. Here I'm doing a process, length into breadth. So the variables which I have given here, the same variable, I have to use it here. I'm doing the multiplication length into breadth, and I'm assigning it to the area variable. And here I'm returning a value. So I have told you 3 important things you have to keep in mind: function name, then parameters which you are giving inside that, and then the return value. Yes, so here they are returning the area variable. So what will happen? The value which is being assigned to the area variable, that will be returned here using the return function. And when we run this program, what will happen? This area rectangle, which is the function name, you will provide along with the values you will provide here in the parenthesis, because we have given the variables here, but you have to provide the values here within the parenthesis for the variables which you have created in the script mode. And after doing this, once you press enter, automatically what will happen? It will calculate and assign the value to the variable area, and then the value will be returned using the return function, and hence the value will be displayed over here. So this is how it works. And if you look at some of the commonly used built-in functions in Python, if you see input and output function, we make use of input function and print function. For data type conversion, we make use of Boolean data type, and then character data type, dictionary, float, int and float we have discussed, even dictionary we have discussed, and then list, ordinary, and then ordered list, set, strings and tuples. All these things you will discuss later. Then mathematical functions. So to perform mathematical functions, we make use of these built-in functions in Python. And other functions, if you see import, this we have discussed, which is the keyword. which we will use to import all the functions. And then length function, range function, type function, which we have discussed already. So these are the commonly used built-in functions in Python. And in the next class, we will discuss about the indentation concepts. So I hope you understood this class. Thank you, children.